Hi everyone, Mark Cavanis here for our Jubilate Music Group Composer Spotlight. And in the spotlight today is our friend Jay Rouse. Welcome, Jay.
In the spotlight today. Hi, good to
That's
be here.
right. That's right. You're in the spotlight and I'm out of focus. And so we'll see if that corrects itself very soon. I hope it will, Jay.
Yeah.
Well, listen, welcome, and we'll keep plugging along here. And listen, Jay, you are coming to us today from Oklahoma. Where in
Right.
Oklahoma are you guys now, Jay? Tell us.
Yeah, so this has been a big move for Amy and I. We're in Oklahoma City. Edmond is the name of the town. This church is called Crossings Community Church. It's a church that we've kind of known and loved for many years. I'm a part of the Church of God denomination, and this is actually a Church of God congregation. So I've known of this, and I've known of come and gone here for the last 4 or 5 years. And just prior to all of the pandemic and all this change in our world, we were kind of finalizing a deal to make a move here. And, little did we know how much, this was really going to be God's plan for our family to be here. So it's been a real blessing to be here. And we're kind of, we don't really call ourselves Okies yet, but I guess maybe eventually we will. We're still
Yeah,
getting used to all that. So
exactly. Well, so you were in Indiana though, yeah, for a long time.
yeah, so I went to Anderson University, which is there in Anderson, Indiana, when I was like 19 years old, and fully intended to move back to Florida. That's where I grew up, and that's still kind of where I'm headed. I kind of say that I'm stopping off in Oklahoma, and then I'll eventually get to Florida. But yeah, I never planned to stay in Indiana all those years, but started working with the Gaither companies, started working with Praise Gathering, and then toured with Sandi for all these years, and she was based there for so many years. So it just ended up being where we were, and it was home, and we loved it.
Yeah.
But this is just part of God's plan for right now, and we're feeling really good about it. So
That's beautiful, Jay. That's beautiful. And of course, I know your wife, Amy, very well. She's my favorite, seriously, studio singer up, I'll say up in Indiana now and out in Oklahoma. And
yeah,
Amy has such a beautiful voice. Oh my,
yeah. She told me to
seriously.
make sure I said hello to you. So
Oh, that's very sweet. Well, please give her my best as always. But I'm seriously, I always say we're going to have Amy sing this solo. Got to have Amy sing this beautiful solo.
yeah, she's
So,
a wonderful singer.
absolutely. And well, okay. So now we rewind a bit, Jay, because these composer spotlights, I want people to they know your music, Jay, and we're certainly going to talk about your writing. We go way back. Good gracious, we've probably known each other for 30 years, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you even know when we first met? I don't remember even.
I don't know if I could pinpoint it because we've done so many reading sessions
Right.
where we were in the same room together. And I just remember some of those early years when I was first doing reading sessions in the 1990.
Yeah.
And I remember we were kind of on the docket, many
For
times.
sure.
So I remember those early days when.
Yeah. So I started at Gaither Praise Gathering in '88.
Oh
So
my! How
that
about
was
that?
when I was 23 years old, kind of straight out of college. So that
Gracious!
was
How
the
about that?
beginning for me. So that's about right. That's the right timing. So that's what I
Yeah.
thought.
How
Yeah.
about that? I can still see you on stage doing reading sessions and doing a great job. And so that would be my earliest remembrance of our meeting. But when my favorite question to ask composer arrangers is, what was the first thing you had published and when was it published? What year was it published?
Okay. So when I took my job at Gaither in '88, I was really taking a job as kind of an office manager. I actually was doing some editing for Integrity Music because we were partnered with them during that time. So that was a little bit of writing. And actually, what happened was Randy and I were in a meeting with a guy for a new kids musical. This was like 1989. And the guy didn't come quite as prepared as we kind of thought he was going to come. And so about halfway through the meeting, Randy slid a napkin over to me with a lyric written on it and said, "Is there any chance you can write a melody to this?" And I was like, "Well, maybe." So I did. On a break, we kind of worked on that song, and we ended up having 3 songs in that little kids musical. It was called Wondrous Gift, which is a little simple musical, but that was published in 1989, and that was kind of where it began. And then Honor, Glorified, Exalted is a song that was real important to Randy and I. So that was kind of about a year and a half later, we wrote that song, and that's the song that kind of began to, make its way into the church at that time. that would be one. If anyone knows, any of my older songs, that might be one they might know. That was really the song that began to define us and allow us some entree into the church and have them begin to trust us as writers. So,
Wow, that's incredible. And I love stories like that. And so it's amazing, Jay, at what has ensued since you did that first napkin song. And how many cantatas musicals would you say you've written since then?
oh, it's hundreds. It's honestly, Randy knows those numbers and always would recite that. I don't even
Yeah.
know, but I mean, so pretty much from 1989 until just a couple years ago, we wrote Christmas and Easter like all of us did.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, the fun thing, Randy always in his house in Indiana, in his study, Carol has framed every single cover that we've done, and it kind of
Wow.
remains there's around the top of his study. And so and Randy and I often say that it's almost like a journal for us because we can remember what we were doing and what was happening when the birth of my kids, Amy's parents passed here, we had just opened this part of our company, we were working, all those kinds of things. So I'm really grateful for the heritage that I have there in that music. And again, just like all of us, Mark, I was just doing the next right thing. Just,
Right.
here's another musical. We're just trying. And we're just really grateful for the influence God's allowed us, through the years. So I'm very grateful.
Indeed, absolutely. Well, again, that is so evident, Jay. As you know, I've worked with a whole, as have you, in a publish. You've worked in a publishing role. You've worked in a writer's role, like I have all these years. But you're well. Again, more on that later. But it's just such a joy to work with you always and to have you here with us today. And okay, so how did you? Well, you kind of talked about how you got started
Yeah.
at Gaither and Praise Gathering, but how would you say what attracted you to writing? You're certainly a musician
Yeah.
and a pianist and
Right.
everything, but what attracted you? I know that Randy slips you the napkin, says, "Here, let's do this." But I'll bet you'd written stuff maybe in high school or
Right.
college or
I was from the time I was like 12 or 13, little tiny church, South Lake Wales, Church of God in Lake Wales, Florida, where I grew up. We moved there when I was 7. I was playing in church and, kind of by the time I was 12 or 13, I was the piano player and I was,
wow.
playing offertories or making up offertories or, playing for the little youth group, things like that. So yeah, it had always been a part of my life. And I think I knew I wanted to do it, but honestly, I thought I was going to be like a studio musician. That's really, or be on the road in some fashion. And I've certainly, had my share of being on the road through the years, but in general, publishing kind of took me by surprise. So in November of 1987, I was in the backyard of 1250 Kenilworth in Coshocton, Ohio, trying to convince this gentleman that I would be a really great husband for his daughter. And that was in November. And in December, Randy came to me and said, "Hey, is there any chance you'd come and do some office management?" We worked together at a church there, Eastside Church of God. And he said, "Would you come?" And since I'd had this conversation with Amy's dad, I was like, you know what, that might be a good idea. I think I need a really good job because just being a piano player is not going to quite convince him.
Right.
So in many ways, I mean, again, God's providence, but that's why I took the job kind of initially is I needed a job. And Amy at the time was singing with Bill and Gloria on the road. And so it all just kind of fit together pretty well and made sense for us all to be right there at the Gaither companies. But I never dreamed of being a publisher. I never dreamed of writing that much. I mean, I wanted to arrange, but my life has been marked by that all my whole life, Mark, just kind of watching God seeing something in me and people around me seeing something in me that I didn't see. And then just kind of, walking through open doors and being grateful, hopefully most days. So,
Wow.
yeah.
I love that story. That's beautiful. And it's such a great, you're exactly right, a tribute to God's providence and his grace and guidance. And but you got the talent and have honed that talent and paid the price. And so we are the beneficiaries of your incredible artistic fruit all of these years, decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
I'm grateful. I say it often, working musicians, that's a hard thing to be, so I'm really grateful for all these
especially
years.
nowadays.
Tell me. Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure. For sure.
absolutely, absolutely. You know, do you have a favorite style you like to write in, Jay?
Yeah. You know, as a publisher, and you'll know exactly what I'm saying, you kind of lose some of that, even if you did have a favorite style, because you're entertaining so many different styles, especially trying to be a well-rounded publisher.
Right.
My favorite kind of music that I go to if I'm just kind of, which this doesn't happen very often, but if I'm just wanting to listen to something, is like movie scores and that really interpretive kind of music. Even when I was taking piano lessons and doing all of that, I always leaned towards the more romantic kind of styles. And um, any chance I get to, especially I did this a lot of years with underscoring and things in musicals, I love that portion of creating moods and feelings with music. So that's one thing I love. And then the other piece is jazz. I love jazz. It's not something I get to play very often. And of course, it doesn't make it into a choral market hardly ever. But I have through the years done a couple, like I've a Cool Shades of Christmas project that I did a handful of years back. We got a jazz trio in the studio for a day and we just played music and kind of turned it into a book. So I love that kind of style. And that's, it's pretty technical in some ways, but also has a freedom about it that I just love. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And it's the thing about this. Well, you're so flexible with what you do, and in the different styles that you write in. So that's and you have to be, but yet you seem to be more conversant than
Well,
many.
and I had the opportunity, Mark. That's how I kind of feel is not, I mean, often a ranger will get somewhat pigeonholed, like he's this guy or he's that guy. But I'm able to, kids musicals and a cappella and,
Right.
adult musicals and, piano books and all. I mean, I've just been really grateful that I've been in positions and been asked, to do lots of different things. So, yeah.
Who would you say would be your greatest musical influences, either classical or pop or whatever, or certainly Christian?
Yeah, so I mean, people like Billy Joel and Elton John, that kind of music was a big part of my childhood. As far as
I'm too.
piano players, people that looked and did kind of what I did. But then, I mean, this is going to sound weird, and it's just kind of the kid I was. But I grew up in the church, and Bill and Gloria Gaither came once a year to Lakeland Civic Center and did a concert every January. And I would sit in that room and listen to this music, and it just had such an impact on me, both as a kind of church kid, of course, but then also the level of excellence that they were able to do. That's the music that kind of wrote on my heart the earliest. And I mean, again, I'm this weird kid, but I was listening to musicals. God has always had a people as a musical that that Bill and Gloria did when I was still in high school, and I wore that record out. I mean, I just was kind of into that. What we actually call corporate worship now, as far as worship leading through music. It was a little bit different in that stage in my life, but they were doing something. Even Alleluia had a huge influence on me, and when it first came out in 1974 or whatever it was.
I
Those are the
wasn't born yet.
yeah. Okay, let's go with that. Yeah.
No, believe me, I was quite alive and
I
well
get
and
it.
chasing a dog with a stick. No, I actually finished doing that by then.
That's funny. Well, I mean, that's just kind of the music that really imprinted on my heart. And I mean, one of the reasons I went to Anderson was because I wanted to work with Bill and Gloria if there was ever be a chance. I had no idea if I could. But then, God was really gracious and kind to allow me to meet them and then be able to work with them. So
You
yeah,
know, Jay,
those are my
if I may, thank you. I don't want to cut
oh
you
no,
off,
you're good.
but I just love so much what you're saying. It just because I feel like the fact that you saw the Gaithers come, Bill and Gloria, and then you worked with them and were working with them, and isn't that just? I mean, I'm talking about records and all of those things, because so much of this is just so resonating with me. And but I did the same thing. You know, I was reading those recording credits on the records
Oh,
and of the things we were singing in youth choir, and then got to work with these people. I think of Mark Blankenship and David Danner and those folks, that I eventually got to work with, and God rest David, and but Mark, and I'm so
sure.
thankful that we're such good friends. And so there you are, working with the Gaithers now. What does that feel like to you when you step back and try to look at that?
Yeah, no, honestly, I mean, I don't know how this is going to sound, but just a week ago, Bill called me in the afternoon and we were just talking about some things, just kind of life things. And he's definitely been that friend to Amy and I. I mean, he's 14, I mean, 20 years older than I am, whatever he is. but he's been a real friend to us. And Amy and I constantly say how grateful we are for the influence they were, especially on our early life. She was on the road with them, and I was playing for him some. I never had the full-time gig with him, but then I've been a part of his publishing company for all these years. What it means to me, Mark, is that that God knows so much more than I know. I'm kind of guy who always has a plan. I think I know what I want to do and where I should be, and this is what I'll be doing to a T. If you look back at my life from 1988 or so when all this started, none of it's gone the way I thought it was going to go. None of it. To this move to Oklahoma, I just had no. I mean, with all due respect, I had no desire to live in Oklahoma. This was not part of the plan, and yet Amy and I just this Sunday were driving home from church, just so grateful to be a part of this. And so, that's kind of what all that teaches me, is that, I can have dreams, and I have plenty, but, kind of letting go of those, putting those in God's hand and saying, I'm going to trust you for what's ahead. And I've obviously had a chance to be with Bill and Gloria through these years. It's just been such a blessing to us. They are exactly who you think they are. They're just really great people. So it's a blessing.
Wow, that's your life, Jay, and Amy too, of course, are true testaments to God's guidance and grace, and it's amazing. It's wonderful, and so it's so beautiful to hear all of this, and I know everyone's loving it like I am. Okay, one more question before we start wrapping things up here today, and we're gonna get to the lightning round in a second.
Okay.
But anyway, what do you like the most? What do you like most about what you do and have done all these years?
It's a really easy answer for me. It's the variety. I'm the kind of guy, first of all, I'm a very creative person, of course, but I'm also kind of process and system oriented. So I like to have an office and a place to go. And I care what, the color of the octavo is. I care, what the engravings look like. I care, how the music works, every piece of it. I'm not just that guy that writes it down or whatever and then kind of lets it go. So for me, that variety, and like we talked a minute ago, all the styles that I've been able to work with, being on the road with Bill and Gloria, on the road with Sandi all these years, having that a part of my life. I've always been in a church on some level doing work. So all those different areas that I've been able to participate in, that's still what I love the most. And I love orchestrating. I love working, with choirs, but I also love playing and working with rhythm sections, all of it. It's just, again, I've been really blessed to be able to do all of that. And that's always the part I love the most.
Wow, that is so exciting, Jay. Again, we are so blessed. And it's so beautiful to hear that. And so, okay, well, let's keep rocking and coming down the home stretch now. For the lightning round, as I say, you're too young to remember Alan Ludden on Password. Or maybe I become...
Heard of it. Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah. Maybe I become James Lipton at this point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
my questions are going to be a lot easier than James's are.
A few of those I will not answer. So.
I was going to say, we're going to stay away from some of those questions. But, okay, so fun stuff about how can we get to know Jay Rouse a little bit better today. What's your favorite food?
Oh, so it would always, so between two things. One, it's Italian. I kind of love pasta. I don't eat it as much as, I used to, kind of thing. So I love that. But then the other one would be, in the last 2 or 3 years, my daughter has been making this homemade carrot cake.
Wow.
That she makes for my birthday for sure. And then any other time I can convince her to. So that's by far my favorite. So
that sounds great. Your favorite color? What's your favorite color?
Blue, probably blue. Yeah.
Interesting. I like blue too, and that's a great color. And what's your, okay, now since we're going into the Christmas season before too long, what's your favorite Christmas carol?
Oh yeah. It's interesting, again, doing what we do. I've worked with so many for so many years, and I kind of love a lot of them. I was just in a meeting. In fact, I'm gonna grab my phone. I was just in a meeting the other day, and we were talking about, and I said this before, it's always been one of my favorite Christmas carols, In the Bleak Midwinter. It's kind of so I love the melody. The melody is just beautiful, but I actually have the lyric here on my phone because here it is. So this is the lyric I love. It's the third verse. What can I give him, poor as I am? If I were a shepherd, I would bring a lamb. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. Yet what can I give him? I will give my heart. I love that lyric. I think it kind of puts us in the Christmas story, and for it to be both ancient and then have such, kind of modern application as well. Yeah, it's beautiful. That's one of my favorite Christmas carols.
Oh, that's beautiful, Jay. I love that text and tune, and in the bleak midwinter. Well, now we'll go to from the beautiful and serious to the silly, the final question in the lightning round. And
All right.
what's your favorite Christmas TV special?
Oh, that's fun. Uh, okay, so when I was a kid, probably Charlie Brown Christmas, loved the music, loved it. Rudolph too was another one that I loved and always watched. But for now, for my family, do you know the movie Elf?
Yes, I love it.
Okay, so that's kind of a family favorite to us. We watch it every year. And honestly, when my kids were little, they would play it on the DVD in our SUV. So I've kind of listened to Elf as many times as I've watched it. And that's one of our favorite movies. So a big part of our Christmas is watching Elf 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 or 20 times. So,
Bob Newhart's in it as well,
yes, yeah, he
and
is.
you got to love that. And they turned that into a Broadway musical.
I did know that. And actually, I've seen it. I've not seen it, but I've seen it kind of different places where it's been done. I haven't yet. I bet it's. Have you seen it? Is it great?
Yes, yes, it's really good. They wrote some
I'd
additional
love to see
songs,
it.
of course, and it's worth it. It's a kick. It's a really good score, so you'll enjoy that. You need
Yeah,
to
I'll
try
have
to
to check
catch
that
that,
out.
and I'm sure it'll be in New York again someday.
I know. Sure.
And which is a great segue to our final question, Jay, and that is as we look towards the future. And yes, we hope that certainly we're hoping and praying that churches will be full bore and open completely coast to coast around the world, choir singing again, and yes, that the Broadway thing will be open too someday along those lines. Uh, I always say it's not if, but when we'll sing again. And so,
Yeah.
what encouragement, Jay, might you give to those viewers watching now? About the future and church choirs and those kind of things.
Sure. When I left for college many, many years ago, my mother stuck a 3x5 card in my luggage, and it had a scripture written on it um, from the Living Bible, which was a Bible that was kind of a big deal at that time. I had one of those green padded, one of my first Bibles. And it's from James, the first chapter, and it's always kind of anchored my life, and especially at this point. It says, "Is your life full of difficulty and temptation? Well, be happy, because when the way is rough, it's then that your faith has a chance to grow. So let it grow, and don't try and get out of your problems. When your faith is finally in full bloom, it's then that you'll be ready for anything, strong in character, full and complete." And I think that's kind of where we find ourselves. I mean, for me, so often right now, I have to kind of look for God in the cracks and look for him in the kind of the empty spaces that, might translate lonely to me, or might translate, God, what's the future? What's that going to look like? Will churches ever be worshiping again? What will that look like if they do? Will I have work? Will I ever be able to write again? All of those kinds of things, you know, pop into my head at a given time. But then, just as I've already explained a couple times here, I've watched God time and time again through all my years make a way and be there for me in those times that have seemed really hard and really kind of dark. And I mean, I know your churches are probably the same as mine. Have incredible stories even in and around all of this COVID, and it's touched all our lives in difficult ways. But at the same time, too, we see God's hand on our lives and through our work. And so I don't know that it'll ever go back to any sense of normalcy, like, or kind of what we knew. You stretch a rubber band, it never quite goes back the same way. But I do think, I agree with you. I know we are a singing church, and I think that will always happen on some level. And so I want to be a part of that in any way I can. And I look forward to, you're so kind, Mark, to allow me to work with you and create with you. So anytime I can help or work with you, I'd love to do it. And I just look forward to what's ahead.
Beautifully well said as always, Jay, and thank you for that. And the feeling is mutual, of course, in terms of working together. I alluded to this earlier. Let me flesh it out just a little bit. And everyone who's watching, Jay will want to turn off his camera because he's too humble, and I mean that. But Jay is, and I look straight into my little camera when I say this, one of the most humble and easy to work with writers I've ever had worked with in my 31 years of doing this. So Jay, thank you for your beautiful spirit, which is fully on display. You talk about Bill and Gloria being what you see is what you get. Well, everyone, that's the same thing with Jay Rouse. What you've seen today is what all of us get behind the scenes, because of a true, generous, gentle soul and an incredibly creative, beautiful, gentle, generous soul. So Jay, thank you for the gifts you have given to all of us music publishers and to the Christian world over the many years. And we look forward to beautiful gifts in the future. And as I would say, to piggyback on what you were saying about the future, scripture in Romans, we know that God can turn bad into good. And I think, the streaming and all of that stuff with churches, I don't think that's going to go away. I think there are people who worship at certain churches from Oklahoma, where they're watching a church in Nashville, or vice versa. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, I think, we certainly want to get the folks back in person, and we certainly want to get choir singing again in person, and I believe that will happen. But again, I think God can take the bad and turn it into good, and use the time period we've been through. But in any event, again, Jay, thank you so much for your time today.
So good to be here, Mark. Thank you.
Our pleasure, and thank you for tuning in to this Composer Spotlight with Jubilate Music Group.